took me an hour to kind of dig deep. Like, no, like, what is the real reason you do this every single day? Like, yeah, like you want this thing to grow, and yeah, there's a lot of answers, but really digging deep, like, no, like.
On today's episode of Rise, Grind, Repeat, we talk to Kyle from 12th Street Creative. We discuss his approach to content creation and the powers of community over competition. Let's dive right in. Kyle, thank you so much for joining on another episode of Rise, Grind, Repeat. I'm excited for this because just talking right before this, there's so much that you're doing that I absolutely love. The grind that you're putting into the day to day, the learning of how to grow a business. But before getting into there, would love to just what's your story? Who are you and what do you do?
The best part of my story has kind of already happened. I was 10. My brother and sister adopted from Ghana, Africa.
Okay.
So, as a 10-year-old, I got to go to Ghana and see like a whole different like world than I'd kind of seen here. Like 10-year-old Kyle was like worried about like I still am trying to contextualize it because I like kind of saw like a lot of like reality on that side of the world. And 10-year-old Kyle was like, man, I was worried about like what I was wearing to school that day and like what we were having for lunch. Like, is tater tot day? Like, I was worried about all those little things that like 10-year-old Kyle, probably should have been worried about in like 5th and 6th grade. And I got to go to Ghana in 2010 and meet my brother for the first time and really realize the power of perspective and connection. I shared a room with my brother for 10 years. Shared a room with a kid that was born on another side of the planet, totally different background, and experiences he had that I really couldn't ever understand or begin to even like kind of like really understand and learn the power of perspective and of storytelling and connection. And I was in high school. I took a multimedia class because I thought it looked cool. And I grew up playing soccer. I was on the varsity soccer team, but I was in this multimedia class, and all my friends in high school, like sophomore year, working jobs like McDonald's, In-N-Out, Cafe Rio. I'm like, I don't want to get a job like that. In my multimedia class, it was like a super big blessing because the teacher didn't really like teach anything. Kind of sat in the back of the classroom, watched NFL highlights all day. And I sat around in class for like an hour, and at first I'd like play on my phone, like whatever, like screw around. Then I sat there and I'm like, Perry High School was like one of the most like funded like multimedia programs like in the state probably. And so we had all this like legitimate like production gear in this whole studio. And I was sitting there one day like, he was watching NFL highlights in the back or whatever, and everybody was screwing around. I'm like, man, like I'm going to see if I could do anything with this camera stuff. And started stealing it on the weekends to go work on projects. And I'd sit in class and be like, okay, I have an hour to find some work. And I'd surf Craigslist trying to find $50 gigs because I didn't want to have to work at McDonald's or In-N-Out. Yeah. So just kind of running all over, taking $50 gigs and kind of scratching and clawing. My first ever like project was I shot a wedding video for my uncle. He's really mom's cousin. I got a big fan. I call everybody uncle. But I traded him. I shot him a wedding video for him, and he built me a computer. He used to work at Intel, so he had access to a whole lot of like computer parts and knew how to do it. So I walked away with a project under my belt, and my first project under my belt, and computer I kind of work.
A new editing machine.
Yeah, new editing machine.
Money making machine.
Then I had to figure out like, how can I take this computer? I don't have any camera gear. How can I take this computer and build out, like start to like take on more work and save up for camera equipment, because it's expensive getting into all this stuff, and I think the coolest part about shooting that wedding video for him was like it was like the first thing I'd ever done. I was kind of messing around at this point, like just trying to make some money, and it was cool because I'd put like 40 or 50 or 60 hours into it, like a lot of love. And I was like, the whole time I was like, man, I used all this equipment I stole from school, didn't really know how to use it, threw it all in auto, and I'm like, man, like this could be so much better. And I was so disappointed with how it looked, and I was all nervous, and I was like, I'll invite him over just to come watch it and just tell him like, hey, I'm so sorry I screwed up your video. And I started playing it for them, and it was really cool because everything like I'd put all this time into making it, and I was all nervous. I'm like, they're gonna hate this thing,
Yeah.
and I saw them tearing up and like looking at
Really?
each other the whole time, and I realized like, man, something I like worked so hard on like could actually make people like feel something,
Yep.
and that was the first time I like really had like connected with I think people. I don't know if they really felt like they connected in the same way, but
Yeah.
it was really really cool just to kind of see like how people would appreciate something that you make and put a lot of energy into. And that was the first time I was like, man, like this is kind of what I
Yeah.
want to do. I want to chase
Empowering.
that feeling. Yeah. And it gives me goosebumps like thinking about it too, you know?
Well, that's awesome. I mean, I was going back to that first project on what started it all, and I mean, love kind of the lead into that where it's $50 jobs here. I love the tenacity being in class where it's like, well, everyone's messing around. Why not just do something? And it's led to you finding your passion. I mean, which is really cool. You know, it's tough. It's tough, especially early on. I mean, we've learned the hard way. I mean, you do the free jobs, you do the cheap jobs, and it's do anything you can just to get the job. That first one that you did obviously made him feel really well. Was there ever a time where it's just took on a job, did it, and then you did have that negative feedback or not kind of that first look that you were looking for?
Yeah, it was there was, you know, I had one shoot I rolled up on, and I mean, I was just like a high school kid. Like I rolled up with an Arnold Palmer in my hand, and because I was addicted to those in high school, and the guy like he saw me like I was shooting something. I was like putting a lot of heart into things, and he like took the Arnold Palmer can out of my hand and threw it, and like
No way.
yeah, it was
While
like
shooting?
yeah, stuff like that. So it was like yeah, obviously I've like you know had to learn a lot and make a lot of mistakes. But I like now I seek that out a little bit because like the mistakes you make, like you have to make the mistakes in order to
Mm-hmm.
know what to avoid in the future and how to keep growing. And now I kind of seek those out a little bit, listening to everything Gary says, like taste a lot of things, experience a lot of things. Like I feel like there's no way if you're really chasing what you love and doing everything you enjoy, there's not really any way to like lose.
Yeah.
Really,
Oh,
like you can make the biggest mistake, and at the end of the day, it's like just a learning experience and something to grow from.
exactly.
So
I mean, and that's all building a business is. I mean, it's having that iron jaw that as long as you don't get knocked out, you can stumble on to the next steps. But it's that learning, and after a while, you learn how to dodge and duck. Reminds me of dodgeball. Dodge, duck, dodge. Yeah. But you learn how to kind of avoid those and get out of the way. But I mean, that's part of the learning. And as you do those, then things become more profitable. You kind of see the time that goes into it. Where I mean, early on, I thought it was 4 hours. You make the sweet commercial, and all of a sudden, it's like, wait, this took us 40 hours to do. And so learning that things could take longer, again, just helps you be more mindful as you're scoping things out moving forward. Who is it that you want to go after? And so without the learning, there's never any growth. But you know, that growth is never fun to experience until you just, you know, having that perspective, knowing that it is going to happen, expect it, and just enjoy it when it does come, because you know that whenever you do get hit, when you get healed up, that it's just going to be that much better, that much easier as you move forward in what you're doing. It's you know, what is one of the biggest learning things that you've had through this whole production process? And really a lot of people that are listening are small business owners, entrepreneurs, and I think a lot of people see the value in video, don't understand, you know, what it takes to make something great. So how do you go about, you know, your process with prospects?
the power of story is really like I really think like I can go out and do like an okay job.
No.
And sometimes like I realized like really early on that like sometimes me getting work, like people just wanted to work with me because they like enjoyed hearing a little bit about my story. And like I really like seek through like I love connecting with people, and I
Mm-hmm.
feel like I can relate to like I love the corporate and the business space because talking with you and kind of learning everything that you're going through as a business owner, like I can relate to it a little bit. But like everybody's got a different story, you know, and everybody's dealt. I learned this from my brother. Everybody's dealt a different hand of cards, you know, and it's really cool to see people who have a pretty sweet hand of cards actually like doing something with
Yeah.
them. And uh, you, everybody's hands of cards are different. Like you can't really like, you know, say like, oh, his are better or his are
Yeah.
worse. It's just like where you are. And as entrepreneurs and business owners, we're all starting at part A or like point A and trying to get to point B. And
Mm-hmm.
it's cool to kind of hear like all the routes and the stories and the just the hardships and the struggles
Yeah.
that people are going through. Cause it's like, I mean, I tried to hire my first person to go out and do some drone work for one of my clients, and it was like the first, I was all pumped. I'm like, oh man, it's my first person I'm ever hiring. Like, this will be great. He'll go out there and do some work for me because I was busy shooting for someone else. And first thing he does is like crashes like my $2,000 drone I just bought. So it was like, learning mistakes like that. Like, I can laugh about it now because I mean it was 3 weeks ago. It still kind of hurts.
Oh wow! I thought you were gonna say like 3 months.
No, this
is
like
even
still
3
like
months.
3 weeks ago. Like
Wow.
I've told you, I'm like kind of early in my journey, but it's like kind of realizing like those are the things to kind of like look forward to a little bit. Like he called me and I was like, "It's okay, man. Like let's figure it out. What can we do? Like let's problem solve. Like it's a fun ride,
And that's the approach that you have to take because I mean, and it comes down to mindset. And I appreciate you speaking on perspective because at that split moment you could get upset, you could laugh at it and do nothing, but let's figure out a problem solve. And really, the best businesses are built on problem solving. What is a problem that a consumer has? What can I do from a product or service perspective that solves that problem? So the fact that even, I mean, you mentioned you're early on in your career, stuff like that, but to be able to immediately go down that mind frame or that thought process of how are we just going to figure this out? What's done is done. Can waste more time getting upset about it. I mean, have you always kind of had that, or was it going back to Ghana, getting that kind of perspective? Or,
it's just your story, like you can choose how you want to be in those moments like that. And you can, if you there's a couple ways you could take that. Yes, I could have gotten really pissed at him and really mad and upset and like, like that's one way to do it. I could have like gotten angry and like been like, oh, I don't want to do this anymore. Like, I don't know. There's a lot of ways I could have taken it. But like, story over everything, all the mistakes you make along the way, like that's just what your story is. And kind of connecting with people and learning, like as a business owner, I think it's important to kind of realize like where you're going and like what your why is and the things that you want to accomplish. Your story is how you get there. And it's every business and every person, like my story, like going to Ghana when I was 10, and like it's different from your story, it's different from Dre's story. I mean, it's everybody's story is different. It's what separates you and me. And every business has a story too. And figuring out like that's the piece I really love is working with businesses because, every business has a story. We all have like things we're trying to accomplish in our lives, and figuring out like how you can like what customer needs you're fulfilling, and what are your core values? What are you trying to accomplish?
Yeah.
Like, these are all things that like your consumers and people want to know,
Yep. No, I love what you mentioned because I truly think that how you go about any situation from a feelings perspective, you get mad, happy, sad, no matter what. I mean, everything. It is literally your mind and how it is a choice on how you want to react to things. And I think that also transcends a lot of things that happen after the fact. It's, you could have got pissed and yelled at him and all that. Now you burn a bridge, and now I don't know if you guys are still working together or not, but
absolutely. He's already, I think he's working for me like this weekend too. So
there you go. But I mean, you could have, got upset, burned a bridge and all that. And I think going back to you mentioning about storytelling, I think how you react to these stories or situations help tell that story. For example, it's like, I mean, I'll say something, people are like, oh, that sounds dumb. Why would you even do that? What if it doesn't work? I'm like, well, if it doesn't work, chances are I'm probably not going to die. And I'm going to tell the story, and it's going to be a cool story. It's going to be a conversation starter. And now I build a relationship. Like, it might suck at the time or moment going through it, whether it's putting myself in a weird situation where it's tough, too much, whatever it may be. But once you get through it, that's a story to tell. And I think the more you can lean into the uncomfortable situations, the how you react to things that are thrown at you in real time. I mean, it's easy to hear bad news. I'll go think and then react. And I think all those things help tell your story. And it sounds like, you're taking things in a great mindset, which is going to ultimately help you tell your story that much better, which through that you can help tell your client stories as well. Because to me, that's what all this video, all this content is. How can you tell a story that leads to a business action?
I made a lot of mistakes when I was going through video production. I had to learn, like there was, in the beginning, man, like I started from the bottom, like throwing my camera on auto, and there were times where I'd forget to hit the record button 10 minutes in an interview and have to go back and ask all those questions again. Yeah, you feel like an idiot, but we've all made mistakes, and you just have to kind of remind yourself in those moments. Like the biggest piece for me was it kind of reminded me the first thing he did when he called me to let me know was he called me. He's like, hey, here's what just happened. Like we crashed the drone. Client saw it, but I've already worked it out with the client. They were laughing about it. It's okay. he's like, I went and watched a YouTube video. I think I know the parts that we need to like. He's like, he'd already gone and looked up the parts that were fixed. Like we need to get to fix it. And like he was trying to like problem solve and figure out how we could like fix it together. And was like, you don't even need to pay me for the day. And it kind of reminded me like that's kind of how I was when I was starting out.
Yeah.
You know, like we're all just hungry kids trying to make it. And you know, it's just forgiving and being willing to like work together and move like past stuff like it's a drone. Like it's a funny story for me kind of to tell. But it's like every business goes through stuff like that. You know what I mean? So
no, absolutely. And I mean, knowing that, you know, you're big on stories, you're starting to tell yours. I think that the videos and stuff like that are being produced, it's telling some sort of story. I mean, it's too many people are doing buy this, sell here, but they aren't telling their true brand story, whether it's the owner, the founder, the CEO is telling why they started the business, or the team behind it on this is my day to day. This is what, but I think telling that story is huge. But I think a lot of businesses always want to fall back on, well, we got low prices. And it's like, that's not that good of a story. So how do you go about working with clients and stuff like that, knowing that, you know, a story is what we want to tell. That's what's going to help you drive revenue or your desired outcome from this video. How do you go about that process to help? What is it we want to do? What story do we want to tell? You know what I mean?
Yeah. It's every story is different. I'll kind of answer it in this way, like, because I see the Garyvee shoes up there, and I live by like everything he says on Instagram. Why do you love Garyvee so much?
I do because I mean, he just always cut through the noise, you know, through BS essentially. But I mean, it's very rah, very motivational. And I think he is the person that when I was, you know, like we were talking before, got laid off from my last agency. And I was like, do I want to still work in the agency world or do my own thing? Ever since middle school, I saw my dad do his own thing and I've wanted to do it and stuff like that. And so I just started listening to him maybe a month or two before that. And it was just hearing him led me to make the decision to go down the path of what all this EIC stuff is. And so I'm appreciative of it because he had the words and that got into my ear that made me take the action to where I'm at in my life now today, which very stressful, but very, very appreciative of it and stuff like that. And so hearing his stories that on how he got through everything led me to have the motivation to make the decision to start this.
In his story, I think is like the single biggest like driving factor for like, I mean, it's a lot of people feel the same way. You know, I look at all of his stuff on Instagram and I feel inspired. And I mean, his story is like classic, like immigrant comes to America. He helped his dad grow his wine business, and he wants to buy the jets. And the entire way that he's documenting the entire journey, like every step of it. And not only that, but he's like, you know, he's a genuine person because he's using his platform that he's built to build other people up along the way. You know, and I think that's why everybody loves him too, is because we can relate to that. Like he talks about his struggles, the things he's learned, and what he had to overcome. So to answer your question, like really just figuring out like what your story is. Like that's the hardest part. Like what is actually your story? Like, yeah, you can sit here and a lot of it is sales. Like, you know, hey, I run a business. I want to sell some stuff, but really like you're a human being too, you know, and everybody's made mistakes. For all entrepreneurs, and there's a lot of things that we learn along the way that I think if we just were comfortable sharing those stories. And it's always interesting to me because I've worked with dentists, man, and baseball players and musicians and people in the home services industry, like air conditioning guys. And I love all their stories just the same, because just hearing like where they are point A and trying to get to point B and the things they learned across the way, like if you can figure out really what your story is, and that's the funnest part for me, is like figuring out like how to help people tell their story. And there's all sorts of different ways to do it. It doesn't have to be video. It can be, you know, I mean, everything Gary does. If you listen to what Gary does and you implement what he does, like you're gonna win. Like that's just how it goes. Absolutely. But like it's just figuring out what your story is and the medium you want to tell it. And I think the most successful businesses and people on the planet are the best storytellers. Yeah. You know, it's really just figuring out what your story is and how to tell it. And there's a lot of ways to do that too.
Yeah, no, completely agree, because I mean, it's everyone talks about a story as in, well, I was going through a hard time and started this, and it's like, oh, that is a story, but that's not why you started. I think getting into that why, I think, is so big. I can't remember who I was talking to recently, but they were talking about there's this guy that owns a tire shop, and it's like, okay, cool, he sells tires, But the reason why he started it is, and they're all premium brand or premium tires, stuff like that. But his son was killed in an accident because of a faulty tire, and his mission is that he's never gonna let any other person, die from something like that. And so his story is, he's selling these tires because he's trying to prevent, other families from really experiencing that tragic moment that he had experienced. Telling that story right there, as soon as they got that on, really, I think it was video, and I can't remember what other mediums, but as soon as they started telling that story more, rather than we got a discount on Ford tires, once he told that, it really resonated. And I can't remember what their numbers were, but I mean, sales just absolutely exploded. But it's stuff like that. I mean, most people can go, well, I'm just a dentist or I'm just a tire shop. What story do I have? But it's why do you wake up every morning? Why do you deal with the frustrations, the all the not so fun things that come with running a business? Like, why do you do that every day? And once you can get that out and craft it in a way that resonates with whatever medium you're pushing it out on, whether it's YouTube, Instagram, whatever it may be. But those little things, getting out from behind the brand, humanizing the brand, becoming vulnerable, all those things are what really lead to, those things that all people invest into content for, drive sales.
And sometimes, like, yeah, sales is like the end goal, but like I promise you, when you go to Gary's Instagram, like, he doesn't care if you buy his stuff or not. Like, he doesn't care if you buy his sneakers. I own like 3 pairs of them. Like, he doesn't care if you buy his sneakers. He just wants to help everybody else and build up people along the way, and kind of that's his like North Star in what he's doing. He wants to buy the jets and he wants to be super influential and remarkable, but it's like that whole journey of like how he's getting there. The first interview I ever did, like sit down interview in high school, when I also realized, like, holy cow, like the power of connection in the interview setting. I was sitting for an hour and I was shooting a documentary for the Chandler Symphony Orchestra. This was like when I was like a junior in high school. And I interviewed the Chandler Symphony Orchestra as this like small, I say small, it's like a 50 to like 80 person orchestra in Chandler.
It's huge.
And they put on all these free concerts like 8 or 10 times a year, and invite the entire community to come listen for free. All these orchestra musicians are volunteers and they go play music for free, and they'll practice, 2 or 3 nights a week, and then they'll perform on these Sundays. And I talked to the guy who helped start it all. His name was Jack Harriman. He was like, man, this is gonna sound messed up, but like, he was like old as dirt. Like, this man was like 97 or 95 or whatever, and he's still like conducting an entire orchestra. And I got to sit down with him and ask him, because he started it, like, I was shooting their 25th anniversary documentary, and he'd been doing that every single week for 25 years without getting paid for it. And I got to sit there and I asked him, like, what, like, I tried, it took me like an hour. I was sitting there for an hour in this man's house. He's like, oh, come on over. Like, I had to call him like 3 times, like, because he just didn't really answer his phone. Like, it was like the weirdest, like, I'm like, is this the right place? Like, it took 10 minutes to answer the door, and I walk in, it's all a cluttered mess. And it was cool because it took me an hour to kind of dig deep. Like, no, like, what is the real reason you do this every single day? Like, yeah, like, you want this thing to grow, and yeah, there's a lot of answers, but really digging deep, like, no, like, why did you, like, 25 years is a long time
to be doing it.
It's
not getting paid. I mean, that's commitment.
And I finally got it. And he said there was one day early in, when he started this orchestra, that he was conducting a piece, and like a week later, somebody bumped into him at the grocery store and was like, hey, like, are you like the orchestra conductor? It was like some old dude. He's like, yeah. And he had said, this guy told him that, like, he had played a piece, like, his wife had passed away like a year earlier, and like they listened to this piece together or something, and like that was like the first time like he listened to it and like really like felt something. And so like right then and there, like the orchestra conductor took an hour to get that answer out of him, but he's like, that's why I do it every day, is like, if one person kind of like hears something I do, or something, like feels something in an entire auditorium or whatever, like that's that one moment where you feel something, like that's what we're all chasing,
Yep. I think everyone is. I think that I do something and it impacts someone's life so much that it literally changes their life. I think that's what everyone wants. And I think everyone at first sets out to do that when they start their business. But I mean, as you know, the learnings, the problems that come, I mean, it can wear you down, and you can quickly forget why you started to do all this. And I think really digging down and waking up every morning, like, why am I doing this? I mean, I have it on my phone and in the bathroom, but as soon as I wake up, it's the why I get up, because it's I try to get up early and stuff like that. I mean, it's been long hours and stuff like that. And sometimes it's, what am I doing? I just want to hit the snooze button for about 4 hours. But it's like, once you remind yourself why, it's like, oh, well, I'm not tired. It has that mission. And I think getting that out, that why is so powerful. And I think so many businesses struggle to do that.
I'm going to shout out one of my friends, Joey Bellis at OPT, because I learned a lot from him. He's the guy who connected Tyler Wagner and kind of like started like a little bit of this. I was doing some free work for his gym meditation practice, but I sat down with him once and figured out his why too. Like he's all about like self-improvement and motivating people, and he explained that his why, and I really try to embody this like every single day. His why was like, if he could change one person, like that same feeling like Jack said, like in that interview setting, it took me an hour to get there, but I finally got it out of him and like changed the whole course of like, I'm like, man, this is connection, like really learning and understanding like why people do the things they do and what drives them in their story. Like if you can just change or impact one person, like really, like that's my simplified why.
Yeah.
Is like, man, if I could just like work with one business or one person and help them realize like what their story is and then tell it and like make a living doing that, like that sounds like a pretty good way to live life, just go around like listening to people tell their stories and like bringing it out of them a little bit. Like it's just changing one person, starting with one person. Like if you change one person, then I mean this is what Gary does. He changes one person, and now we can have a conversation talking about him on the podcast, and then somebody will listen to this and they'll go live their life a little differently. Like it's all like just starting with one person. If you could just impact or change one person every single day, like,
well,
it's
a ripple effect. I mean, you change that one person, now all of a sudden their whole perspective, their everything is different on the day to day. Now they might go out and all of a sudden they might change one person because of their transformation. Exactly. And now through that, you've impacted two people. And I think that's interesting because so many people, I think, get stuck on, need to change the world. I need to change billions. And I think,
or just themselves. I think a lot of people get absorbed. Like this was like for 10 years, man. I shared a room with a kid, and I was he went through a lot, man. I feel like I wished like I'd like gotten to connect with him more, like growing up. Like he's the like coolest motherfucker on the planet. Like, and you could bleep that out, like, but he is. And like I wish like for 10 years I'd like taken the time to like really talk to him more and like learn more about. Like I did a lot, but like really like there was so much more that like I wish I'd been able to like really understand about his journey and because I really think he's like one of the most remarkable human beings. The way he lives his life and his energy and his positivity and everything, and like everybody loves my brother. Like he's literally the coolest person on this planet. And just to think like, man, if he lives his life every single day, he's probably gone through a lot more stuff than we can really understand, and like that's, I don't know how comfortable I feel sharing that on a podcast, but like he lives his life and impacts and changes a lot of people. And it's like I said, everybody's dealt a different deck of cards and different hand of cards, and everybody's cards are different. It's just, what are you doing with your cards? And like how can you, like if you can just take your cards and impact or change one person, man, like that's what it's all about.
So what kind of video do you like shooting? I mean, there's so many different kinds. You got documentary styles, you mentioned weddings, you got promo, you got a ton of stuff. It sounds like you really, I mean, to me it sounds like you really love the I mean, what I would assume is a documentary style, because it's very getting within to come out. And so it's like knowing how much you just love hearing people's stories and all that. We'll love to hear what do you love shooting?
Documentary stuff is really intriguing to me. But I also like to like start something and then finish it and move on to something else. Like
that is tough with documentary. I mean,
like and I don't know if like there's a lot of stories on this planet and a lot of really, really cool, impactful people. And I want to hear all of them. And like every little thing excites me, whether it's like, I mean, I got a call today to help, like, I started out doing, when I was doing video production, like highlight videos, to help some of my high school buddies go play college soccer. And I helped a couple of them. I had a friend go play St. Louis University,
That's
like
cool.
all over. Like I helped some kids go play college soccer through making highlight videos. And I enjoy doing it because it's like, it's a lot of hours, and it's like the pay isn't that great. It's like a highlight video, and sometimes I'm like way too busy to like really be doing like I don't know, it's hard. Like, but like on the same token, it kind of gives me that perspective of like, there was a point in time where I had dreams and aspirations to play college soccer.
Yeah.
And to kind of help somebody through what I'm doing, like, if if I ever got to like direct feature films, which I don't know if I could do that because like that's a lot of time to be attached to a big story. But you know, like I still want to do highlight videos and all of that stuff because I know the kind of impact that you can make through video, and I think the world's changing, and you can do a lot more than I think we really understand right now, and tell some really insane, beautiful stories through the medium of like cell phones and all of that. Like I think so much more can be done. It's all exciting, and I want to do all of it. You know?
No, I mean, talking about changing people's lives. I mean, it's you know, the highlight stories. It's or the highlight reels and stuff like that. It's who knows, maybe you help someone that none of their family's ever been in college, but the video that you produced is the one that got, you know, that person into college, and literally you just impacted an entire family tree by having you know, someone come in and
it's something so small, you know, like for a couple hours for me to be stressed out after I land from Seattle and I like need to go work on this, and like, man, it's midnight, but I told this kid I'd have it to him on Monday so he could send it to coaches, and I'm like sitting there for 5 hours and it's like, oh, like it's hard, and like it's everything we do is hard, you know. It's just like figuring out like what is your why, like where are you trying to go, and like we all go through hard things every single day, but I promise you, like if you look at your cards, like your cards are pretty good, you know. Like you could just go through your life and know that, like, man, if just try every single day to tell a story, to impact somebody or do something different, because you'll help somebody else, but you also learn about a lot about yourself along the way too.
100%.
You know?
I really think that, you know, something my dad told me when I graduated, he had like 10 things of like words of wisdom and stuff like that. And one that really stuck out that's always lived with me is no matter how bad you have it, there's someone that has it way worse than what you have. And it's like, after hearing that, I mean, it's, my wife gets annoyed sometimes, but I mean, I joke around where she'll be getting mad at something, frustrated situation. I'm like, look we're still here. We're alive. Like we're kicking it. Like, there's no reason to be mad. There's someone, like, you're complaining about that. There's someone that's having to walk 2 miles to go try and find water just so that they can stay hydrated and not die. Like we're good. And I'm a big proponent of perspective.
Absolutely. And the other piece too is because once you have it, like you also have to learn to look at those things. Like I struggle with that for a long time as a high school kid and like going through life, like, you know, like it's not like worse, it's different. You know,
it's a good way to put it.
You know, like it's everybody on this planet has different. It's their story, you know, and you know, look at Garyvee, right? Like immigrant came to America. Like there's a lot of really, really badass immigrants, and you can look at like where Gary is, and you can say like, oh man, he's got all this, and somebody else that doesn't have all of this, and like it's not better or worse, like it's just different. You know, and just working with the hand of cards you're dealt, and you know, just like I said, I keep going back to that, but that's really how I look at life. Like we're all just dealt a different stack of cards, and it's not worse or better, it's just different. You know?
Run with what you got. Figure out how to make the best of what you have, whether again, whether it's good or bad is all perspective. I mean, someone else can say it differently, but it's whatever you have to work with. Just figure out how to maximize it and continue to figure out how to grow. You know, when it comes to perspective, it's a lot of business owners, entrepreneurs have different perspective on what video works, what should I be doing. I mean, do you have any insight or any recommendations? I'd love to hear your thoughts on what types of videos, I guess, work best, or is there one that works best, or how to identify what type of I guess content to create to help tell my story.
I really am only focused on the story and the creative piece of it. I don't understand everything. Like I'm 21, I still have a lot to learn and figure out. I understand the story piece. That's something that as I kind of continue to grow out and build my business, like figuring out like the best mediums and the best way to like, I can go sit down with somebody and like have an hour-long conversation and like figure out like what their story is and maybe give them some ideas on how to tell it. And maybe video is not exactly the answer, you know?
Yeah.
If video is the answer, I have a skill set and I can go do some stuff around it. But maybe, you know, really I'm driven by story. And if video one day isn't the best way to tell a story, then I'll figure out what the next best way is.
Yeah.
There's a million different people who can tell your story really badass. You guys do a really remarkable job. I've seen some of the work you guys have done for your clients. But like, you know, like it's just, there's a million different mediums and ways to tell your story. And like I said, everything Gary and his team are doing, like you can put out a blog post every single week on your website, and it also doubles to help with SEO and lead conversions and all of that. When they go to your website and they want to learn about what you do and they know your story a little bit, like it all helps. And throwing videos about yourself and what you do and what your company does and the kinds of companies and clients you work with and what your mission is and your core values and what kind of employees work for you. Like these are all things that I think our generation is kind of like looking for when they scope out, what companies and businesses to associate and align themselves with. They want to find companies like everybody. If you look on Twitter, everybody hates Amazon on Twitter, but Amazon also it's a whole different beast.
Everyone keeps ordering.
Yeah. But I worked for a couple years in the home services, the HVAC background, with like air conditioning companies and the most successful ones really just learned and understood how to tell their story, whether it was through marketing pieces they were putting out or building a really badass website where when people went and looked for you or they called you on the phone, like your story is going to be the reason that people work with you or they don't, and I think that if you can figure out the best way to tell it where you'll really resonate with people, like that's how you're going to be successful. And also I want to go around that word successful too, because it's like it depends like what your definition of success is. Like for me, I don't know if it's making $1 million or whatever. Like I don't know like what my definition of success is, but like if I can like impact some people, like in change, tell some cool stories and impact some people and help people realize what their stories are and maybe change one person.
Again, the success, it's all perspective, because it's like everyone, not everyone, a lot of people tie it to financials, but it's, again, your day-to-day happiness is dependent on perspective and everything. And to me, it's like, I'm successful, anything, but moving forward is all like gravy. I got a car I could drive. Yeah. I have a family. I have a wife. I have a little kid now. I have a little bit of extra money to put aside for savings to help with all of that. So like I don't need millions. I don't need. Car and drive 95 Tacoma. Like I don't need all these fancy things. I have what I need to live, and that's what makes me happy. Anything above there is super successful. And I think people again get caught up on, I don't have $1 million in the bank, I'm not successful. And then that all of a sudden spills into, well, I'm not successful on this it's the negativity starts to spill into your day-to-day, your projects and everything like that. Yeah. And again, just having that healthy mindset on what is successful. Everyone's striving to be successful, but you don't even know how to define it. So how are you going to get to something when you don't even know how to define it?
And what I would say to people who don't have that answer is, you have to figure that out first. You'll run into a lot of walls and obstacles if you don't know what you're chasing and like what your definition of success is. But I think the easiest way to kind of understand it is like, for me, I just made a vision board. But I think that like the word North Star, or I guess it's 2 words, but like North Star, if you can figure out what your North Star is and what you're chasing, like I said, mine is like, it's from a friend, Joey Bellis, and he said he just wants to change and impact one person and have somebody else impacted. Like, my North Star would be to kind of be able to really fully contextualize the experience I had with my brother growing up and my family, and understand how to like share some of the things I've learned along the way. Like my definition of success would be like building up. I've thought a lot about my legacy. It's weird to say that as a 21-year-old kid, but like if I had a legacy or like ever like got to accomplish anything, I would want my legacy to be all the people I worked with along the way, and like the people I built up along the way, and like that's what drives me, motivates me. Like this video stuff it's a cool skill set, and I'm learning a lot more about it. I've gotten to work with some really, really, really cool people. Like I said, baseball players, musicians, like
soccer team.
Like but I'm also just living my life too, and like enjoying things, and I love telling stories, and that's like, but I'm driven every day by my North Star. I have a vision board, and I like the idea of entrepreneurship. Like I have like on my vision board, there's like things that like I want to accomplish and do, but like it's really just like, what is your definition of success? Find that, figure that out, and once you do, everything else becomes a lot easier. You can handle phone calls about a crash drone a lot easier, because in the grand scheme of things, you think about your vision board, you're like, you know what? Like I had to go through this to learn how, like, we all go through different things. And I bet you somebody else out there has a lot worse of like a entrepreneurship story than a $2,000 drone crashing and it only costs $300 to fix it. Like, like I complain about that and like it hurt a lot, but like, it's like, there's a lot bigger things. Like I don't know if I could handle the stress and pressure of having employees and like people and people's livelihoods in like my hands, and like I need to put money on the table for me, but also like I have 10 people working for me. Like that's a lot of responsibility and things to like, you know, I don't know if that's really appealing to me. Like there's a lot I'm figuring out, but I'm stuck on the story piece because I think there's a lot that can, you know.
Love it. You mentioned North Star. You have something to guide by. I mean, it's going to be an ever-changing path
Yeah.
to get there. Things are going to come up, but at least you kind of have something that you're working towards. I think
Yeah.
just a lot of people that, again, I want to be successful, but it's like, well, you don't know how to define success. So you're not really going anywhere. You're moving a lot, but not moving forward. So I mean, that's a huge step. It's just knowing that why, that how to tell the story, and then what is that long-term goal? What is it you want to accomplish? And that kind of helps dictate what your day-to-day moves, decisions, how you react to things, all line up. And it sounds like you're well on your way, way ahead of most 21-year-olds. That's for sure.
Thank you, man.
So, I mean, we've been talking a lot about, your story. You're helping tell other people's story, whether, I mean, right now it's the video. It could be something different if people's consumption changes. What are you working on right now or over the next 6 months? Again, everyone looks at what's your 10-year goal? What are you doing over the next 6 months to really help you grow professionally and personally?
I just transitioned out of working a full-time job because I my phone was kind of blowing up a bit with people that wanted to work with me, and I wish, like, I really want to be able to figure out, like, if I'm booked on a Saturday and somebody else wants to work on that Saturday with me on that Saturday, like, how can I, like, I still want to I want to say yes to everything. I want to work with everybody, and I'm realizing like that's not the healthiest way to sometimes run a business. But I really really want to work with everybody, and how can I like um I I want to kind of like ride that and figure out like how I can like I love the idea of like growing up. I played club soccer, and I always wished I was like the team captain or whatever. Like I felt like I was like one of the like the lower guys on the team, but I'm like, man, if I had a shot to be team captain, like how would I run things? And like, you know, like what kind of impact would I leave on the people around me that maybe weren't as good or maybe were in my shoes? Like, and if I was fortunate enough to kind of build out something where I could do the things I love every day and tell stories and maybe run a business and lead a team or work with a team or whatever, like I just want to be a part of telling stories. And the next 6 months, I think looks like for me figuring out, you know, what, I mean, I'm early in my story and in my journey, figuring out like what the next steps are. I really want to like figure out like I'm enjoying working with the one guy I'm working with right now and figuring out if I can continue to build out and scale video production here. I think it would be really, really cool too. And I think there's a lot of badass stories that you could tell. I mean, continuing to work with some of my existing clients right now and just figuring out, like, just riding the wave. You know?
Well, that's awesome that that you kind of made that transition away from the full time. I mean, that right there is gonna
scary.
It is, and it kind of lights that fire under you, going, well, I don't have anything. How am I gonna pay rent and eat? I have to do something, and it forces you into figuring it out.
And I was really, really scared too. And if anybody out there is like living like the full time life, like I worked 60 to 80-hour weeks for like 2 years straight. And it's all documented in Harvest. Like my calendar is crazy. I used Harvest for time tracking, so I can figure out how much time I'm working on things. So I can really like say yes to everything and figure out what my limit is and all that. But like, if anybody out there is like doing like the 60 to 80-hour week full time gig, like the biggest like, I was scared to take the leap and do it. And I was like, man, I have gigs lined up for like the next like 3 or 4 weeks, but I don't know about anything after that. And like last week I was sitting there like, oh man, what am I working on this week? And my phone just like, I had people calling me and texting me and emailing me, and it just kind of like, I don't know, I feel like if you take that step and take that leap and kind of believe in yourself and you're the first one to do it, other people, like the universe will kind of reward you. If you're really like a good person, like just work hard, be a good person, try to impact people and change people, and I think the universe will reciprocate and send good energy your way is hopefully what I'm, you know, just keep riding the wave, you know?
No, I couldn't agree more. Do you do stuff that it sounds like a lot is like project based, like one time video, it's done? Or do you have anything on the horizon to where it's like, hey, you know, your story isn't told in one little preview or whatever. How can we do this on a monthly basis, quarterly basis to try and insulate yourself on I have future revenue that I can count on, and not always, sweet, I sold 8 projects, I do them, oh, now I have to figure out how to get more because I have nothing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that would be great to kind of have a conversation with you after to figure out how I can begin to do that, because that's something I haven't really ever like thought through. Because I just, like I said, I enjoy kind of riding the wave and saying yes to everything, and have never really stressed about that because I just believe like if I just work hard, like it'll all keep coming. So yeah, it'd be nice to have some stuff down the road. Like I've got shoots booked out like all the way through like the end of August and stuff. So like
Dang, nice.
I'm like relaxing, but it would be great to have some of that like consistent stuff where I can like start to kind of figure out and like actually build out something.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. No,
So-
that's exciting. I mean,
Like I'm
it's,
figuring it all out, man. I'm a hungry 21-year-old kid. I'll still take on $50 gigs here and there if I believe that like it's something that will
lead to
help
something.
me. Yeah, you know, or even if it just like fulfills some of the things that I enjoy doing.
Yeah.
You know, like I enjoy connecting and telling stories, and if the right person came along and had a $50 gig and I was free for that Tuesday at from between 2 and 3, and I could run out there and do it in between all the other shit I'm doing, like I'll go out and do it, man.
Yeah.
You know?
No, I love it. I love the grind. I mean, rise, grind, repeat.
Yep.
You're doing on the daily. You know, this has been great. Love the hustle. We're definitely keeping contact, but you know, you're learning a lot about yourself. You're learning a lot on how to help others. You know, for either that business owner, entrepreneur who's just starting out, and they go, you know, that is true. I don't even know my why. I don't know how to define success and all that. I guess what's the biggest piece of advice that you'd have for them?
I would love to have a phone call or a conversation with you because I feel like I'm still we're all figuring that out,
Yeah.
you know? And it's man, my phone number is 480-369-1004. Like, it's scary, you know,
Mhm.
jumping out and doing your own thing. I think like I said, like putting good energy out in the universe, like it will reward you,
Yeah.
you know? Like don't be scared to take the leap. I didn't realize I was ready until I was past ready.
I don't think anyone will ever be like, you know what? I think I'm ready now. It never.
I was thinking it'd be the end of this year. Like I'm like chilling. I'm like, no, I had to turn down a lot of really big gigs because I was working a full-time job. So I don't know. It's like, it's just, you know, we're all in the process of telling our story and figuring out our story. And that's really it. Just like, you know, like really sit down and think through that, because I think that's the first thing. Like you're going to run into a lot of obstacles and mistakes that I think could be avoided if you just know your why, and you'll have the answers to them. And like my North Star, everything I'm doing every single day, is driven by what, like my North Star, you know? And the mistakes I make along the way, I hope it's pointing me in that right direction, you know, and guiding me in that right direction. So.
Good piece of advice. If you're out there and doing it just for the money, chances are that's not your why. I mean, it is nice that comes in.
It's nice to have some.
Yeah. But I mean, take a step back. Why are you waking up every day, taking the risk to put other people's livelihoods in your hands, put your day-to-day risk and all that? I mean, it's a lot to run a business. It's a lot of liability and all that. Why are you getting up every day to do that?
And if you're doing it just for money, like there's a lot that you're gonna, like there's a lot of bullshit you're gonna have to like get through. Like if it's just for money, you know, like you need a bigger why. You just do. Yeah.
No, Kyle, it's been great. Appreciate the time. I know you already gave the phone number, but if anyone wants to, check out your work, wants you to help them tell, their story, their why, how can people find you, get a hold of you?
My Instagram is Kyle7 Davidson, and I kind of go like hard in the DMs. So, if and sometimes like it's like midnight when I've had a couple of drinks and I'm like, yo, your work is awesome. I want to link up with you and hop on a call. Like that's just kind of how I am. So if you're drunk at midnight and want to hang out and hop on a call and talk about our business or whatever, I don't know. Like let's do it. Like
I think there's a meetup group that should be that every Saturday at midnight. You gotta have at least 3 drinks, 4 drinks.
That's a business idea. That's a business idea. Let's do this.
Let's make it happen.
It was awesome.
Let's make it happen. Dude, appreciate the time.